What is Pragg's response going to be? Is he going to go for knight f6? Is he going to go d5? There's a few possibilities here. He goes knight to f6. And now generally Parham would go c4, that's the main line. But here he goes the London system with bishop f4, trying for something new, something creative, and Pragg goes d5. Now these days black players are very well prepared against the London, because London is becoming one of the main lines. e3 played, just cementing the position, also keeping the knight on g1 for now. Bishop comes out to f5. Pragg wants to get his bishop out and then play e6. Okay, the only downside of this move is that now the b7 pawn is a little bit soft. So white can quickly get the queen to b3 and put pressure here. That's exactly what Parham does. He pushes his pawn to c4 and Pragg defends his center with e6. Queen b3 played, attacking the b7 pawn. Now the main move here is knight c6, because after queen takes b7, which is a mistake, you have knight b4 attacking here and black is already better. So will Pragg go for knight c6, which is the more combative approach here? No, he goes knight bd7, which is not perhaps the best move, but of course you can't take the pawn, because after this, take and b2, this is a very good position for black. So that's the reason why here Parham goes knight to c3, and Pragg now has a lot of pressure in the center, so he goes d takes c4. He takes the pawn and allows Parham to develop his bishop. Bishop takes c4. At first sight, it does feel like black's position is slightly passive. He has less space, white has more space. But after knight to b6, you can see that Pragg's pieces are actually quite well positioned. Bishop is outside the pawn chain, this bishop is open, knights are looking into the center of the board. So the bishop comes back to e2. And next move, Parham will develop his knight, then simply castle, bring his rook to the center, and so on. Pragg plays the move a5. It's slightly interesting, this move that Pragg has gone for. He wants to remove the queen from the b3 square. And Parham goes a3. Well, maybe he didn't like the fact that a4, a3 was possible directly. And so a3 played, and now Pragg goes c6. He puts his pawn on this nice square, and it's a lot like the Slav defense, the position. And now Parham goes bishop g5. Well, knight f3 was possible, but somehow maybe he didn't like this. He wanted his bishop here to move from f4. He goes bishop g5. Pragg plays bishop e7. Very simple and solid move. And now, typical Parham move, f3. This is very ambitious. The knight on g1 asking, why was I not developed to f3? And a4, fantastic move here by Praggnanandhaa. It seems like black already has a very nice position out of the opening. So now you push h6, bishop h4 and knight d5. Looking here, that would be something. But instead he goes knight d7, and this move by Pragg is a very interesting choice, because what he's doing is, he's telling Parham that after your move f3, what I feel is that your dark squares have become weak. You're going to eventually play e4. So these squares become weak, and if I get rid of your dark squared bishop, you will face the sort of holes in your positions. E4 played by Parham. He is very naturally going for his moves. Of course, Pragg has to move his bishop back to g6, and that seems logical. Yes, he does. Bishop g6. But this knight on g1 is not so happy, but it can go to h3 and f4. That's very much possible. Yes, he plays his knight out to h3, and he would like to place his knight on f4, then eventually castle, queen d2 and so on. Parham comes in and short castle here by Praggnanandhaa. He brings his king to safety, and now white also short castles here, which is a good idea. So This position somehow looks around even, but Pragg goes f6, and his idea is very simple. He wants to play e5, get his bishop then to f7 where it will be more active. So Parham really now expanding here, he pushes his pawn to f4. He pushes his pawn forward. Pragg goes e5, which is the best move in the position. He also fights back in the center because not all the space is for white, and actually this leads to some positional repercussions, because now if you see the central structure is that white's pawns, so the central structure is such that white's pawns are on light squares here, while the black pawn is on a dark square on e5. So in that sense, clearly Praggnanandhaa is positionally better, but Parham has these pawns in the center and they can become dangerous. So queen e1 played. Is Parham angling for g4, g5? Could be. But meanwhile Praggnanandhaa going here, he is looking for the b3 square, then d4. His bishop is well placed, his knight is well placed. This is looking like a very promising position for Pragg, and that too with the black pieces after just 20 moves. This is a nice feeling here. And both Pragg and Parham are on 1 out of 1. So whoever wins this game becomes the leader of the tournament. Pragg plays his bishop to c4. And now this is a slightly weird decision because white's bishop was not the best piece. But what Pragg feels is that this bishop is actually controlling important squares like the d3 square. And if I get rid of it, then my pieces can start entering here in the center of the board. So it's a more, like not a positional one, but a more dynamic decision there by Pragg. Knight f2, Parham is trying to control this square, also intending later to go knight g4 to put pressure on the e5 point. Bishop takes bishop has occurred, and now rook takes e2 is very likely to happen. That's what Parham plays. He takes the bishop with his rook. And now will Pragg get into the c4 square? He does so. He brings his knight into the center of the board. The knight can look at the b2 square. Also these critical squares here. And Parham goes knight to g4. He is also keeping an eye here, but very importantly, threatening f6. So king h8 played, logical chess here by Pragg, and now Parham goes rook f3. So now rook d3 is not possible. Also he's brought his rook up. It feels like white's position is getting some kind of a semblance of plan. You know, there is some plan that is flowing. Rook d4 played by Pragg. Now he is trying to put pressure here, but for now the point is well defended by white. And maybe a very useful move. Yes, h3. I really like this move because you make a luft for your king on h2. And you're putting pressure here. You want to play f6, rook f2 somewhere in there. b5 played by Pragg. And can he actually afford making a move like b5? Magshoodloo now sort of lights up. His eyes light up. He goes f6. Is this pawn sacrifice a good one? Pragg takes it and he asks Magshoodloo, why did you give up a pawn? Because if you take here, this is well defended point for me as black. But Magshoodloo's idea was rook e f2, and now all of a sudden he has play here on the f6 point. Now Pragg, if he's unambitious, he can take on e4 and then we have mass trades because f6 will also hang. But instead Pragg goes very, very ambitious. He says, I'm going to defend my f6 pawn. I'm a pawn up and I'm going to play this position. But for Parham now, this is the kind of positions he loves, where there is initiative, there is attack, knight h6, fantastic move. Look, there is some pressure on g8, there is pressure on f7, and more importantly, knight is coming to f5 to fork here. So Pragg now jumps in, knight to d2 played. He is attacking the rook has to move, but where exactly? If you go rook f5, you will lose this e4 pawn. So you may have to go rook e3. That seems like the best move. He goes rook e3. He plays his rook passively. Maybe Pragg can try and sort of repeat here, knight c4, but then there's already knight f5, so maybe there's no repetition as well. Queen e6 played by Pragg. He's just trying to make certain moves. Also, time wise, both players down to their last 5 minutes for Pragg, 7 minutes for Parham, and they have to make another 8 moves before time control. 30 minutes will be added after 40 moves. Queen h4 played, again slowly putting pressure here, and also Parham wishes to get his rook to g3. Now knight f5 looks like a very powerful move here for Parham, attacking this here rook, but he goes rook f5 and he is aiming for rook h5, rook g3, knight f5, then put pressure here, then the rook coming here. Somehow it's just so easy to play as white here, it feels. He goes b4, and Pragg's idea here with b4 is to create some play on the queen side. The best move was to wait with queen e7, but after b4 takes, rook takes, now Pragg's pieces are slightly offside. The best move according to the engine is rook f2. Generally such moves are very difficult to find because they are backward moves. Also Parham had gone rook f5, so he goes queen g4, and with queen g4 his idea is rook g3 and just mate. That's his plan. It's a very simple but brutal plan. Rook goes back to b8, and this is the problem when you are just left with 3 seconds. Pragg was down to his last few seconds and he makes a move very quickly, and now Parham goes rook g3, threatening a mate. Queen e7 is the best move here. Just keep your queen there, but Pragg wants to move his queen somewhere else. He has to make these decisions in just few seconds that are left. So he needs to play quickly. There you see Pragg getting really anxious because if he can't find the right move, he'll lose. He goes queen d7. This is a mistake because now queen h4 putting pressure here might be very strong. Also a move like king h2, but then knight f1 check is in the air somewhere in future. So maybe Parham can just make this very quiet move, king h1. Oh, he plays it. With this, Pragg under time pressure, under 30 seconds, has to find an accurate move. A move like queen e7 is good. Knight c4 is okay. Rook d8 is maybe perhaps okay. No, he blunders big time with knight e6. Terrible move because now suddenly this is not hanging. Rook takes f6 happens. Pragg absolutely forgets it because rook takes f6, queen g8 is made. Look at Pragg's expression. He's completely missed it. Earlier there was queen takes queen happening, but the moment he put his knight, it blocked this diagonal and it is game over. What a massive blunder by Pragg in one move. Yes, he was under pressure, but it was not losing by any means. He could have fought on, but Parham put so much pressure there that Pragg has simply lost this position in one move. He stops the clock, resigns.